to Cynthia Philippe, who's joining us from the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, and she's going to give us all we need to know about those clinical signs and prevention steps regarding high path avian influenza. Thank you again for joining us, Cynthia. I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Charlotte. So, good morning, everyone. I'll just briefly introduce myself. So, Charlotte, my name is Cynthia Philippe, and I've worked for 23 years in the Ontario poultry industry, and 7 months ago, I joined CFIA. So still new and learning and discovering at this point. I'll thank you for the last number of slides on avian influenza. I think it is a very important topic. So I'm glad you covered some, I'll cover some, and we'll see if I get more questions. So I will start sharing my screen. Give me a second. There you go. Okay. Let me know when you start seeing my screen. Okay, share.
We have it up now. Thank you, Cynthia.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Al made a number of good comments and brought a number of good information on influenza with what's going on right now on the Atlantic coast and so some tips. So you'll see that some of the tips and advice will repeat, but maybe that's okay too. So let's just get started. Okay, so just a very quick background on the disease, and probably maybe nothing new for this crowd, but just reiterating the fact that not all influenzas are equal. So for avian influenza, we talk in terms of high pathogenicity or low pathogenicity, and that's defined based on mortality and diagnostic work. Both forms are very contagious. Then we also categorize influenza viruses based on the hemagglutinin and neuraminidase. These are two protein antigens on the virus capsule. And and that's why you hear the combination of H5N1 or other combination. The recent cases has Al has mentioned, they are H5N1 and they're matching the viruses that were circulating in Europe in the spring of 2021. The viruses used the migratory birds used the flying pathways, right? So they came from the East Atlantic Flyway, mingle all up north, and then these birds, then other birds fly south using the Atlantic Americas Flyway, and then that's how the virus was brought to the Atlantic coast at this point. If you look, right, these flyways, they do sort of overlap and so on, and that's hence the message that maybe it seems far from Ontario today, but really it isn't. So what should we be looking for avian influenza, the clinical signs? And I will really focus on the high path right now, because that is what we're seeing on the Atlantic coast. And it's hard to miss, frankly, because it is called high path for a reason. So the signs are pretty evident. So if we think of a breeder bird or layer bird, now we'll see a drop in egg production. We'll see soft shell eggs or shell-less eggs, diarrhea, hemorrhages on the hawk, and the high sudden mortality rate may be the very first sign that is seen, along with quietness and extreme depression. So depressed bird, if your flock becomes quiet, notice high mortality, that should be very concerning. If birds have actually time to develop clinical signs, and we'll see facial swelling. So swelling under the skin, under the eyes, the wallows, comb can be swollen. The incubation period here, there is a range right from 2 to 14 days. The current virus that is seen on the Atlantic coast, the incubation period is very short. So it really is just a few days. I have a few pictures of this one showing birds that is depressed, lethargic. There's the facial swelling we mentioned, swollen wattles, common face. Again, the mortality might be the first sign we see, the sudden increase in mortality. And here we have diarrhea with it. Here we have a picture of hemorrhages on the shank, and these hemorrhages, they don't just appear on the shank, by the way, but this is where in the barn we can best see them, right? And then the soft shells, as well as shell-less eggs. Switching now to prevention. I'll mention the several advisories that were released last week, and I will be using also the CFIA Federal Board Compensatory and OMAFRA advisories, and there was good information. It is they're good to take a look at. So and the similar messages, you'll see the similar messages are being included. So CFIA reminding poultry producers to take an active role in protecting their flocks by employing strict biosecurity measures, and the idea of immediately reporting any signs of illness. Right. Again, more on the reporting. So if you see unusual death or mortality, drop in egg production, or any sick birds, please consult your local vet. Other advice is to restrict access to property. The wild birds, let's not underestimate that separation must be kept with the wild birds. And on the Atlantic coast, this is what is seen is that, especially in small holdings, small flocks, is that that contact with the wild birds and the domestic birds. So keep a clear separation and practice enhanced biosecurity. From the OMAFRA veterinary advisory, again, to reduce the probability of transmission of H1N1 from wild birds to domestic poultry, strict biosecurity measure should be implemented for all types of poultry holdings. So yes, it applies to all, right? Commercial, small holdings, pet farm, bird enthusiasts. Individuals are encouraged to report findings also of the dead waterfowl and shorebirds to the Canadian Wildlife Health Cooperative. From the Federal Board, I thought was a very good information there too. So as a biosecurity advisory, going through steps that should be implemented by poultry producers. So again, keep poultry away from areas frequented by wild birds. Talks about the strict control over access to poultry houses and your premise, and it's very simple. We all know it. Yet it's very easy to make a mistake about barn entry and access, and it's also easy to implement. So it really is to keep that awareness. Make sure that equipment is clean and disinfected before it enters a poultry barn. Again, that's very basic, but it is also easy to miss or to do it quickly, and that is not the time. Warning about not keeping bird feeders or to create duck ponds close to poultry barns. Again, sanitation standards, maintaining high sanitation. The change of footwear, so that's where when entering the restricted area, so that refers to entering the actual barn. So that keep everything in the barn in, keep everything outside of the barn out. It's not difficult, yet many mistakes. It's very easy to make a mistake in that coming in and coming out. And maybe a very good time if you have any employees to review how to do this properly. Make sure that there's all the proper supplies available at every barn entry, so that is keep things in and keep things out can be done properly. Closely monitor flock health, including mortalities, feed and water consumption, and abnormal bird behavior. And then we've said it many times, if there is any suspicion, you should, number one, self-quarantine, call your vet, and then inform people, right? Inform provincial boards, inform CFIA. I put this here, that's from the Federal Command Center, and part of their advisory was around reviewing the heightened biosecurity cards. So maybe everyone is familiar with it, maybe not, but there are the green cards for in peacetime, which that's where we are, that's what should be implemented. But the advisory is a very good one, is go and read the red cards, right, or the orange cards, so that if we need to switch quickly and implement that you're ready to do so. So it's not to go through the details on this particular one. There's a few, not many. It's not again difficult. It's a good investment of time to go check these cards and make sure that you know what they entail and that you have the necessary material and you're ready to get started if we needed to switch to these heightened biosecurity protocols. I also included this here. So this is a recent poster which was released from CFIA. It is targeted at small flock owners. And I included for two reasons. Number one, they do play a significant role in disease incursion. So they are, they may be more likely due to their practices, for example, of mixed bird, like several avian species mixed, and the potential commingling of wild and domestic. These are the cases that we're seeing in the Atlantic coast right now. So it's good awareness. Having said that, as far as spreading, often these small holdings are quite isolated and with not a lot of movements in and out. So they may be great at introducing. Their potential to spread may be not so high, having said that. And in any event, it's a good poster, and it also applies to commercial poultry, right? Prevent contact, clean, be alert with clinical signs, right? Limit exposures to visitors, keep what's in the barn, what's outside the barn outside, and then and tell someone, right, if you suspect anything. So that is the end of my slide deck. I'll be happy to take a few questions.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. At this time, I don't see any questions popping into the Q&A box, but I will just say that is an excellent sign. And it keeps it very simple, which I appreciate. Just the Cole's notes of what we need to remember to do. And as you said, clean and disinfect, keep those wild birds back, and up your biosecurity game.
Apparently that's all. I can't figure out how to type in the Q&A, so I kind of just ask a question to Cynthia.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. So low path and high path. Does CFI still treat that the same? Because I know in the U.S. there was discussion about letting low path just go to market and only dealing with high path. What's our status on that?
The status is, you're correct, Russell. The U.S. has been using control marketing. In Canada, our approach to low path H5 and H7 is still eradication. There was recently changes made with the OIE Avian Influenza chapter, and the notification to the OIE for these low path H5 and 7 has changed. It's no longer immediately reportable, but as far as the response in Canada to date, it is the same. It doesn't change.
Okay, great. Well, and just to let everyone know, like literally while Cynthia was talking, APHIS pushed out a note, USDA APHIS, that I think they may have confirmed high path in a turkey barn in Indiana.
Wow.
Which is on the Mississippi flight path. So it's getting real.
Sadly, we do have one more question here, and it's about biosecurity zones. Cynthia asks, will movement be managed similar to it was in 2015, or will there be a different approach based on what's happening in the Maritimes?
currently in the Maritimes, I see the same type of approach as was used in Ontario in 2015 is being applied. That is, there's been avian influenza control zones and these 10-kilometer radius zones that have been established. And to date, that's all that's been used. And that's what has been used in Ontario in the past. It's the option of a primary control zone, and that was used in BC in the past, like, sorry for the year, but is always an option. And it really depends from outbreak to outbreak and how the situation develops. So meaning that if there were many commercial farms included, then maybe it's more manageable through a primary control zone, but it really goes by a case by case.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Cynthia. I know it's hard to dust off that silver ball and say, I think in the future it's going to look like this in Ontario, but let's all just remember biosecurity, clean and disinfect, keep them out, keep the healthy birds in, and let's buckle down and make sure this doesn't happen in Ontario if in any way possible.